Hi everyone, this is Matt. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about PhD interviews, specifically PhD interviews at Russel Group Universities. Back in the day I applied for a few of those, and then later as my career in academia progressed, I ended up interviewing PhD candidates. So I want to tell you more about the types of questions you can expect at PhD interviews and how you should answer these questions. If you are new to the channel, I'm Matt. I'm an ex-academic. I used to work in academia for a number of years, and then I transitioned to industry. And now I talk about anything PhD related and anything related to transition to industry. So if you want to hear more about this, subscribe and hit the notification button. During your interview, the panel might ask you lots of different questions, but in the end of the day, you can actually put these questions in 4 categories. So really, they will want to check your motivations, your ability to persevere, your technical skills, and your ability to think independently, your research idea. The very first question we will ask you will be, tell us about yourself. And this is supposed to be an easy question, an icebreaker, a question that you can answer within a minute or 2 minutes. However, I know so many people struggle with this because theoretically there is so much you can tell them, but you really need to decide what you want to tell them. So you're going to talk for a minute or 2 minutes, and you really want to tap into these 4 things. So first of all, start with your background, and when you're talking about your background, you need to tell them about your technical abilities and also show them that you have the ability to persevere when things go wrong. When you finish with your background, you need to start talking about your motivation for doing a PhD. And when you're talking about your motivation, then hint into any ideas for research you have. When you're giving this answer, make sure that you come across as passionate, committed, and you have your own ideas and you want to ask scientific questions and answer them. Because in the end of the day, what they really want is someone who will stay with them for the whole duration of a PhD. They don't want someone to drop out after a year, especially if they already have secured funding. And ideally, they would want this person to be as independent as possible. So this is why they would like to see that you have your own questions and you can come up with your own ideas. Then they will ask you a series of questions related to your motivations. So, why do you want to do a PhD? Why do you want to do this particular PhD? Why do you want to do your PhD with us, with this group? And finally, why do you want to do a PhD at this university? Oh, and one more. What do you want to do afterwards? Now, you really need to think about these answers, and you want to be specific. You don't want to give them generic answers that anyone could say. You want to give them a good reason why you want to do a PhD, why here, how does this PhD fits into your career plan. Because what you really need to show them is doing a PhD is not a hobby for you. It's part of your career journey, and it is actually going to take you somewhere. Maybe you want to become a lecturer, or you want to be a researcher in the future, you want to be a principal investigator. Whatever it is, you need to show them that it is sensible for you to do a PhD. It just makes sense. This is the natural step in your progression, and this is the natural step to get you where you want to be. This is a career choice rather than anything else. I once had a candidate PhD student who told me that he wanted to do a PhD with us because he lived nearby. And frankly, this is just not a good answer. It's not good enough. You need to be more specific. Because if this was the case, then I could have given a PhD to anyone who lived nearby, right? That's not the point. You need to show that you're passionate, that you're committed, that you are going to move mountains to do this particular PhD. And simply they want to see this. Because PhDs are hard. It's really hard work. And they don't want you to struggle, and mostly mentally, and they want to see that after 6 months, after a year, you will still be passionate, you will still want to do and finish your PhD and do more research, right? So you really need to have solid reasons why you want to do a PhD with them, why here, and so on. Next, they will check your ability to persevere. And they might start by saying, well, PhD is a massive undertaking, it is not for everyone, it can be very stressful. It is not always a 9 to 5 job. Do you know what it takes? How do you deal with stress? How do you work under pressure? How do you deal with short timelines? How do you behave when experiments don't work out? How would you act if something didn't work for 5-10 weeks and you just kept doing the same thing, optimizing, trying to get it to work? Right? Do you have what it takes to keep doing research even though you're getting nothing out of it, no results? And that's very true, because even throughout my own PhD, I had periods of at least 3-4 months when I kept repeating the same experiments, optimizing them, and I kept getting nothing. So they need to see that you will not have a mental breakdown halfway through your PhD, because all you've got is just negative data and there's nothing really there. And by the way, it's okay to have negative data. And I know people who submitted their thesis which were both mostly based on negative data, and that's okay. But they need to see that you have the mental strength to deal with it and just be okay doing research because you're passionate and you can persevere. When they ask you any behavioral questions like how would you behave, how do you deal with stress and so on, use the STAR method. This is situation, task, action, result. So when you answer these questions, then you give them real life examples from your life. You tell them how you behaved in the past, and based on this they will get an idea how you will behave in the future. And this is a really good indicator and they will like it. And it's very likely that on the scoring chart they will have a STAR method there. So they will need to describe the situation, task, then what action you took, and then what was the outcome, what was the result. So definitely whenever you get any behavioral questions, answer them following the STAR method. It will make it much easier for them to then make notes and then most likely give you high points. Then on every single PhD interview questionnaire that I've seen, they always asked about technical abilities. So they will ask you questions like what kind of methods, software techniques are you familiar with, right? They will ask you about your bachelor's or master's research project. And they will want to know the background, they will want to know what you've done, right? And then they will start asking you technical questions about the background. So make sure that you do remember what you worked on. Maybe read your master's dissertation or bachelor's dissertation. Maybe read few papers. Just make sure that you remember what all of this was about, because they will ask about it. And then they will ask you about the experiments, right? What did you do? How did you do it? What reagents did you do? What software was it? How did you use the software? Questions about the code, and so on. So definitely they will want to check your technical abilities. And that is important because they need to know what you're good at and what skills you're lacking and what kind of training you will require. They will also want to see that you have deep understanding of what you've done, that you understand why you've done these experiments, and also you have ideas what you would do next, and you understand the purpose of the whole project, where it would go if you had more money, if you had more time to pursue this project. So they're looking for technical abilities, for technical expertise, and they're also looking for your deep understanding of the project. And then they will want to check whether you have what it takes to become an independent researcher. Because remember, they don't want to hire a technician. They want to hire a researcher, and by definition a researcher is someone who can independently ask and answer questions. So they will ask you about the PhD title, the PhD project you're applying for, right? They will ask you maybe what would be the first experiment you would do. How would you do it? What methods would you use? What software, code, and so on. So they will want to see that you already thought about the project you're trying to get, and you have some ideas and where you want to take it forward. Again, they'll be looking for technical expertise, technical knowledge, and that deep understanding and independence. And then they might ask you some more generic questions. So for example, about your strengths and your weaknesses. So the weaknesses is the more difficult part, so definitely don't lie about this and don't pretend that you don't have any weaknesses. No one is perfect, and what we're looking here is self-awareness and honesty. So tell them if you have a weakness. A weakness might be the fact that, for example, you don't know how to write code, or you don't know how to do this particular experiment. But you always have to spin it and say, well, I'm good with computers, I'm good with my hands, and I really want to learn more, and I want to develop this skill, and I already started working on this by reading such and such protocols, manuscripts, whatever. Whenever you tell them that you have a weakness, you have to spin it around into an opportunity to grow. And then you need to show them that you're already working on it and tell them how you're working on it. There needs to be a plan. This is really what we're looking for. What the weakness is exactly doesn't matter so much. You need to be yourself. You can't pretend to be someone else, right? Because they will spot it immediately. But let's hope that your passion for the subject, your enthusiasm for the subject will show, right? Because what you really want to do is you want to make sure that you instill confidence in the interviewers, that you are motivated, that you have the ability to persevere and keep doing research even though experiments are not working out and you're not getting any good data. You need to show them that you have the ability to communicate on time and tell them when you need help, and you need to show them that you have that creativity to come up with your own ideas, come up with answers to questions, optimize experiments yourself, and actually in the future, become an independent researcher. They are happy to coach you, they want to coach you, but over time they want you to become independent. So you need to instill confidence in them that all of this is possible. Research. Read very recent papers, read very high impact papers, read their grants, see what their PhD students are doing. Read your CV and cover letter as well. Remind yourself of what they already know about you, right? You don't want to skip any key facts about yourself. Remember, you are there being interviewed because they like you. They've seen your CV, or they've seen your cover letter, and they think you are potentially a good fit for this role. This is why you are there, right? So remember what you told them through your CV and cover letter, because this is the reason why they like you in the first place. And then just go there and be yourself. From this moment until the interview, think about these questions. Think about your motivations, examples from the past of how you persevered, difficult times. Think about your technical abilities and your research ideas, right? And then practice answering these questions. Practice as much as you can, right? Talk to your mates, talk to your family. If you have to talk to your pet or talk to a mirror, whatever, talk to yourself. It doesn't matter. You just need to say these words out loud, because you need to come across confident that you know what you're talking about, which is so important, and this will again make them feel like you are definitely a good fit for the role because you know what you're talking about. And then in the end of the interview they will ask you to ask questions, and that's really important. They expect you to do it because they want to see that you have ideas, right? So I would, to be honest, ask about two things. So the first question I would ask is, what would be your piece of advice to a new PhD student who wants to succeed during their PhD? And this will make them think, because after all, they want you to succeed. If you succeed, they will succeed. So the fact that you're already thinking about it is really good sign, right? Then the next question I would ask would be about the overall research portfolio. So what is the one scientific question that underpins your current and past research? And remember, in the end of the day, as much as they are interviewing you, you are interviewing them. You also need to like them. You need to like the way they ask you questions, the way they respond to your answers, and so on. So make sure that you're also paying attention to how they treat you. That's really important. And I'm sure you'll do great. Again, if you benefit from this content, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.